Good morning to this glorious Friday of another series of the nuts and bolts of leadership. Unfortunately, our guest speaker was not able to join us today due to some ill health issues. So you are with me today, and we are going to talk about the amazing topic of the various stages of burnout. Now, most of the people have heard of the term burnout and then always think, oh, that's not something that really happens to me. That only happens to other people. And that means when you absolutely a workaholic or striving for perfection. But if you look at some of the stages of burnout, you will see that we are all impacted by burnout. However, it is important to understand the severity of it and knowing how much it does or doesn't impact us. So let's start off with defining what burnout is, because it just sounds like a term we are not totally familiar with. And burnout is really when you are emotionally, mentally, and physically exhausted. You're literally running on empty. There is nothing, but absolutely nothing left in your energy tank. You can't give anything, you can't receive anything. And it can become so severe that if you have severe burnout, that you are often booked off for a period of 3 to 4 months. So that's how long it really takes your whole system to recover if you have burnout. And we all have, to, as I say, to some degree, burnout. But if it's a continuous process of having high, intense levels of stress, and the word is on continuous, without levels of rest and recovery, we will all encounter burnout. And I do need to emphasize burnout is not something to earn a naughty badge on. You don't get stripes for it or stars. So it's not something to really be very proud of. I mean, it's something very distressing for you to go through, as well as the people around you. It's very, very challenging for them to be with you, to support you, and to care for you. So as much as we in the Western world are high on performance and really achieving goals, burnout becomes very quickly an outcome, but not one to be proud of. I suffered in 2000, I would lie now, about 12, 13 years ago, from a form of burnout, but luckily not to that severity. I was still working in corporate at the time, and a 12 or 14-hour day was pretty much, I would say, the norm. And the biggest challenge for me was, and I suppose my biggest development or growth has been over the year, was twofold. And the one is that I was not able to leave work without my email box being empty. And the second one is I was not able to leave work with my to-do list being completely ticked off for the day. What have I learned from then to now? The one is that you never have actually an empty email box or a to-do list. If it is, savor it for 5 minutes, but before you know it, it goes ka-ching, and there's a new email that's come in or something else that's on your to-do list. So it's a mindset shift to know to manage that and cope with it. But that's my personal story and development. So what happens is when it comes to burnout is that there are some early signs that can perhaps one can see or one can view, and that is that there's a the first one is that there's a sense of failure and self-doubt, that one never feels that one is good enough, that one is actually achieving, or that it's at that level. So that's internal conflict and disalignment and dissatisfaction with one's work starts arising. The second one is a bit more subtle, but it does arise, is that one feels more helpless, and also hopeless. So the future just doesn't look very positive, and that whatever one does doesn't really have an impact. So those two words, helpless and hopeless, are key drivers. The third one is starting to withdraw. One isolates oneself more and more. One doesn't want to engage with people, be that peers, be that with family or friends. So one really starts to hibernate more and more. And that's really not good for us, because as social creatures, it is good for us to get out and absorb other people's energy, emotions, and those cuddle hormones just get a bit of a boost. So when people start withdrawing, that often is a sign of burnout, and they do it because they're just exhausted. They're actually just too exhausted and couldn't be bothered to really get up, dress up, and go out. The fourth one is a loss of interest and a loss of motivation. So one isn't interested in partaking in any activities that one prior had fun in. So even hobbies or exercises are all things where it's nah, not today, another day. And we tend to find very quickly excuses. So hence one loses interest in one's own life, in other people's life. And again, it's just that one is not able to, not because one doesn't want to, one is just not able to. The fifth one is that one becomes more cynical and also more sarcastic, but perhaps even in a subtle way, so not in a big way. And then the last one is that one doesn't feel that one is accomplishing anything. So there's more of that. Looking at the various stages of burnout, and I will share this on the post a little bit later. I think there is various stages that one can see, but they vary in degree. And I guess it starts off very slowly with some stress factors coming in. There's a point of where one needs to prove oneself. One works harder to achieve something. You start to neglect some things, especially when it comes to yourself. So self-care starts taking a bit of a back seat or doesn't even arrive. And there's a level of blame towards others for your situations. So those are like the milder beginning stages of burnout happening, where it's just those, and it's becoming very aware that they are appearing and creeping in. And the key one, or the key two, that I want to emphasize there is that the minute one is starting to work harder to achieve the same outcomes and having, I'm going to use the word excuses, to really neglect one's self-care. So those are very key ones. One always says, I'll do it tomorrow. I never have the time. So that becomes key. The more next level of burnout is where your values start becoming challenged. You have a bit of a denial approach that there's problems that are arising due to work stress. So it's no, not because of work. So there is a level of denial. And then this aspect comes in of social withdrawing, and your behavior changes and you get upset more quickly. So here you are starting to get more edgy, more irritated, and that denial comes in. So the burnout phase becomes more evident, or starts increasing. The more severe stages, when they start coming in, is when you start depersonalizing things, where you say it's got nothing to do with me, and you do not take any accountability or responsibility for anything. It's whatever kind of approach. You really start feeling empty inside, you're starting to feel numb inside, and there's a huge increase in substance abuse, be that through medicine, alcohol, or any other forms of drugs. That's just to numb what you are feeling. You need a compensation. And then the real stages before burnout arises is that absolute feeling of depression, that level of frustratedness, and that feeling of incompleteness, that there's just nothing matters. One just feels one has no control. And then the final stage is when you have burnout, is that mental, physical collapsing. You literally just collapse. So looking at these stages of burnout, which, as I say, I will post in the live stream platforms a little bit later, it's really starting to assess, where are you right now? How are you coping with stress? How are you coping with life? Are you taking time out to pause, to rest, to reflect? Or are you having time and your to-do lists and your work environment run your day and rule your day? Do you take accountability for when things go wrong, when there are mishaps that happen? Or is it about blaming others? And I think, again, it's a huge mindset for us to embrace, because we are in the Western world specifically so groomed to achieve and succeed, and it's what we there for, and that's what life is about, to get more and have more and achieve more and be greater and bigger and better. But in the end, it comes at a price, and we need to sometimes weigh the odds, if it's really worth it, and if that's really where we want to go. And often it compromises our internal values. And if we don't pause and slow down and listen to what our internal body is sharing with us, we will override this critical voice inside of us that says, whoa, just slow down, or take it easier and rest a bit. And often we know that once we've rested, we can achieve way more than if we're just going at a full pace. And as much as we hear it, that we're not machines, we don't really embrace it. We just carry on. We just keep on going and assume that this machine will not break down. But it does. I mean, we are human beings. Our physical systems do need to rest and recover. As I said to you, I mean, I left corporate, and I had a form of burnout in corporate. Thank goodness, not that severe as stage 12. But I realized that one day I'm paying a very high price here for the success that I had, and for everything that I had accomplished, which was phenomenal for a very young age to have achieved. But my health took a turn, and I had to go deep inside and ask myself, was this worth the price to pay to really carry on? And the answer, when I listened inside, was no, it wasn't. I knew something was going to give. So was I going to listen and heed that, or carry on driving and climbing that corporate ladder, which was so tempting, and everybody was saying, go get it, you can do it, and everybody believed in me. But I had to step outside of myself, because it was not good for me, and it was not healthy for me. So hence I took a very courageous plunge and left at the height of a corporate career. And I've learned a lot from that. And now, if you listen to what's happening in the world around us after COVID, burnout is starting to emerge very, very um, severely. And the reason is that during the COVID pandemic, we have just become so much more productive, and we are working on average between 30 and 35% more than what we did. And it's tampered with our work-life balance. We don't know sometimes when to switch off or even on. Between personal life and professional life, it's just become a blur. I mean, you just get dressed and you maybe walk towards your laptop, and kaboom, here you can carry on. So where do you set the boundaries? How do you set the boundaries? Because your inbox is going to ka-ching every time. Your WhatsApps are going to go. And it's continuous, especially if you are working internationally. As this continent wakes up, uh, you're getting more mails, and it's starting to learn to set those boundaries so that you can take self-care, because you can't serve others well and offer your services or perform well if you are not doing self-care and looking after yourself. So as leaders, please, I beg of you, you have a key responsibility to monitor and be a role model when it comes to burnout. Be very mindful when you are sending these emails, and that they are not outside of working hours, and if they are, then schedule them or make your team aware. So you do have to take care of it, because your team echoes what you do. So as much as you tell them, don't answer my emails or don't do this, you are sending very mixed messages, and most probably not honoring the values of the organization. So there is internal conflict for the team, that you are causing subconsciously. So please honor your own level of self-care so that you do not have burnout, because especially as leaders in this time, we feel pressurized to know everything, to have all the answers, to have all the solutions, but we don't, because the world is just so chaotic right now, and we are in a stage where we collectively have to find the answers and the solutions. No history book will have told us how to deal with the pandemic or how to lead right now. And then also for leaders, keep an eye out looking at those symptoms I mentioned earlier, or the stages that I'll post for you. Is start really looking at your team, see them, hear them, and start observing if there are the slightest forms of burnout, because you can pick it up beforehand. And then interject, ask questions, be curious, see what you can do, support your team. It does not benefit you if one of your team members gets booked off with burnout. You have that person then off for 3 to 4 months, and as a leader, you have an ethical responsibility to really look after the well-being of your team and also your mental health of your team. And burnout forms part of the mental health. And unfortunately, with COVID, we have encountered a level of stress that we are not accustomed to. It's a situation none of us has been prepared for, and we are all doing our utmost best to cope with it. And some of us are doing it a little bit better than others, but we are not here to judge or have the right to even criticize somebody. It's just what it is. So I'm asking really for you today to keep your eyes out, be it to colleagues, yourself, family, and friends. Support each other so that you can either help have the conversation and minimize the level of burnout, because it has a huge impact on our society and the people around you. So I do hope you can sit back today, take a moment of reflection, go inwards and actually listen to your inside and go, where do I need to slow down? What can I start doing to start putting myself in the middle and also taking care of myself? So that was really the different stages of burnout today. I'll post the slide for you just now. I didn't show it because I didn't want it to distract you that much, but I hope really you can take something out of today's conversation on burnout. I'm looking forward to chatting to you either next week or the week after. If all goes well, we'll have my special guest appearing and we'll be talking about a very interesting topic. But until then, have a blessed weekend. I do hope you take some self care and rest and recover and just recharge those batteries. Short little recharges do miracles. Savor the day and take good care. Bye bye.